Hello, hello. I am Shanelle Dupree, a strategic connector with deep Midwestern roots, and welcome to another creative conversation. Today, I am with Attorney Rekha Sharma-Crawford, and she is a well respected immigration attorney nationwide and in the Kansas City area. And we're going to hear from her shortly. Just want to go ahead and orient us to why we're here. So, what is the purpose of creative conversations? And it is to highlight creative people, places, and projects that are happening across the region. And my hope is for people to hear these projects, to interact with these people, to support these purposeful projects, and to find the courage to tap into their own creative side. So, with that, Attorney Sharma Crawford, would you explain to folks who are you?
Hi, Chanel. How are you? Thanks for having me on your show, first and foremost. So, yeah, that question of who are you is such a big question sometimes because we get used to saying I'm a lawyer, I'm a storyteller, I'm a immigration attorney. But really, when I think about it and try and boil it down, it really comes down to I'm just one person trying to do what I can in my part of the world to make a little bit of a difference for people's lives. And we do that through the work, through being able to tell their stories, through being able to help them when they most need help, and then really just trying to encourage and support them when they need that.
I love that. So you're really identifying with yourself with your purpose, like why you're here, why you're doing the things that you're doing, and how you're showing up for folks. And so, we've of course interacted with one another in the legal world, passing, and then we were both adjunct professors for Washburn, and so you have a lot of expertise and just want to hear a little bit from you in concern of what is the purposeful projects that you've been working on.
Well, I mean, I think, for me, one of the things that is so important is making sure that people have attorneys with them when they most need them. Anytime you say, I'm a lawyer, most people go, oh, you're a lawyer. But really, I think that, we tend to meet people on their worst day, right? We don't ever meet people on their happiest day. We meet them on their worst day.
Oh yeah.
And and you know, one of the things that as an immigration attorney that we realized is that when I first started doing the work, we realized that immigration is a civil proceeding, and so people don't have a right to a government appointed lawyer like they do in criminal court. So on their worst day in criminal court, they at least know they're going to be appointed an attorney if they can't afford one. On their worst day in the immigration court setting, there is no such guarantee. And oftentimes people are required to navigate this crazy system by themselves. And so in 2012, my law partner, who's also my husband, we created the clinic at Sharma-Crawford. It's such a creative name, right? The clinic. It's like, okay, that is not our strong suit, but
It's clear.
yeah, I know later on we found out it wasn't so clear because people would call us and say, do you have a doctor available? We're like, wait, no, that's not exactly right either. But it's a legal clinic
Yeah.
that provides representation for individuals who are going through removal proceedings in the Kansas City area. And so if you have a case that is through the Kansas City Immigration Court, then that is the type of case that an attorney for the clinic would help with.
So Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah. So
Okay.
actually, the immigration court in Kansas City goes all the way from St. Louis to the Colorado border.
Ah.
And so, even though you're on either side of the state line, you may be, in Garden City, but you're still going to be subjected to the Kansas City Immigration Court, which is located in the Lathrop and Gage building downtown.
Wow. I don't think I realized that. This is such a nuanced a niche, right? But it's so important. And when we, you said a statement, we meet people on their very worst days. Um, it's so true. Just my work regarding child welfare when families may be separated, it's literally the same concept. Families are being threatened with separation, and now
Yeah.
you're coming into the space. And so, if I remember correctly, so you started the clinic in 2012, but you have been practicing for about over a decade before that. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanna age me, sure. Um, but yeah, I had been practicing about, about 10 years before that, before we ever started, yeah.
And so, this is nonprofit, so that means that it's at a reduced cost or it's free for folks.
It's both. So there's a component that is low bono, pro bono. And then there's a component that if you meet certain criteria, that you are eligible for pro bono services. And the reason that doing that structure is because what we found out very quickly is that for direct services, there's very limited funding. And so
Uh,
we had to find a way to kind of give the clinic a life source that would allow it to be able to continue to do the work beyond just, we're just going to work harder and donate more and more money to it. So that's where the structure came for is it allows the clinic to self-sustain at least on some level.
when did you realize that you needed to structure it that way? Because, we enter into this work not necessarily for the money, because we have a passion and we want
Mhm.
to help people and we want to do it in a way that makes sense. But if all you're doing is pouring resources, and never having that, financial support, then you're not going to be in business long. And you're not going to be in nonprofit work long. And so, when did you realize that you needed to structure it into a different type of payment structure and system?
We knew it going in.
Okay.
Um, and in fairness, we had thought that by now, 10 years in, that we would have had, either donors step up or other people in the philanthropy world step up or the community step up and kind of help us alleviate some of the lift. Um, happened. And so, we kind of knew going in that, look, we're going to do this regardless of whether there's the support. But in order to try and kind of make sure that we were also able to set ourselves up for success, we
Mhm.
said, okay, we know there's no direct funding. The low bono, pro bono structure is something that we need to look at and really absorb into the clinic. But then our hope was eventually that this was going to, fly out of the nest and go do its own thing. And unfortunately, that has not happened. But the good news is that we're still standing. The clinic is still standing. 10 years later, through a global pandemic,
Wow.
through the court shutdown, and I think at this point it's just pure a labor of love
Mhm.
for so many of us that it's like we will do whatever we need to make sure that it is continuing to breathe.
So, and we've actually covered on some of the topics, like what's been a source of kind of discouragement. It's like you expected for it to be at a certain space by now, and that necessarily hasn't happened, but you're still moving, you're still working for families. And so, can you just talk about any success stories that you want to share? So, what brings you through when you think about how much time and effort has gone into the work that the clinic has done?
Sure. I mean, I think that, I've always said we meet people on their worst day, but I will tell you that when the journey ends and we see them on their best day, that is addictive. And
Mhm.
it's just the joy on their faces. And we see people, a year after all of their immigration issues have been resolved out, and it's like they're a completely different human being. There's so
Yes.
much the stress, and I think people don't realize even just the amount of stress that the body knows, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes they'll be like, no, no, we're fine, we're fine. But their body knows that there's stress
Yeah.
and the body realizes it. And so we see them a year later and there's like no worry on their face. They look younger. Some of them have lost weight and gotten into shape. Like all of the things that were oppressing them seem to have been lifted. And
Yeah.
we see that time and time and time again, that the work just brings us so much joy. And it's such a long, long road for so many of them. I mean, the backlogs for the immigration courts are well documented. So when somebody comes back and says, we won today, or we're able to say, today you win, today you are free of this system, it
Mm,
really is like unlocking a piece of their soul.
mm.
And there's just magic there. And I cannot under stress what that just feeling of amazing gratitude is in that moment.
You oh my gosh. Like, the way that you described that, I love how you use the phrase, "You're addicted to their joy." Like, it's like the joy of other people is what keeps you doing this work and keeps you coming back, and man, if only we could be addicted to that instead of,
Yeah,
all the other issues that people face. But so that's why you're doing the work. That's why it's important. And, I talk about this just regarding like racial discrimination and things like that. The body really does keep score. And you're right, when you're going through a stressful experience, you can say you're fine with your words, but your body is tense, you're always thinking about
yeah,
it, you're obsessed about, you know what I mean? Like, how what else can you're thinking of all the what could happen. And so um yeah, seeing someone on the other side is really a feeling of you can't describe it, but you did a really great job of actually describing it.
no, it's just it really is. It just I can't. It's like magic. I always say that it's just like magic that day. It's just that, and our office that supports the team of the office actually supports the team of the clinic because of the limited resources. But it's a jubilant atmosphere
Mm.
in the office at that point, right? Because we all know what it took to get that person to that point. And it's often funny though, because we're all very jubilant and I think they're still in shock. And so so there's this juxtaposition of all of us going, "Oh my gosh, we're so jubilant." And then it's like a day or two later where they come back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, now I realize." And then it's like jubilation all over again.
Oh, yeah.
So yes.
You get to celebrate twice.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
That is that awesome. So, how and I do want to actually ask you, because you actually wrote a book about a child's perspective of their immigration experience, of their father's immigration experience. And so I have the book. It's a
Ah,
wonderful read. But it's
mhm.
called Aaliyah the Brave: Empowering Children Coping with Immigration Enforcement. And so, you started practicing something years ago, right? Then in 2012 in 2012, you created the clinic, which is the legal clinic, for immigration issues, people facing immigration issues. And now in 2022, you created this children's book, which is so well written, it's so well done. Can you talk about what made you create a children's book regarding a child's perspective of the immigration experience?
Yeah, so in a prior life, I used to be in the district attorney's office and I used to be a prosecutor. And what I realized when I crossed over to the immigration litigation field is that some of the resources, just like you don't have a right to an attorney in immigration court, there's almost this dearth of you don't have a right to information, to knowledge, to support, to resources. Like there's just none of that, right? And so what I saw is that kids going through the process oftentimes they were unaware, you know. And what would happen is that immigrant families tend to be very guarded in what they tell the kids. They don't want to scare them. They don't want to, immigration is such a big word, ICE, such a big word, right? And so oftentimes those difficult conversations don't occur. And so what you would have is we would be getting ready for trial, and we would tell the parent, we need you to bring your child with you. And they're like, oh no, they don't know. And we're
Oh,
like, they have to know, like they have to understand what's happening here. And
yeah.
so I created this book. There isn't one like it out in the marketplace at all. The resource did not exist. And so I thought, well, if not me, then who? And
Yeah.
so I said, okay, let's create this resource. It's interesting that you called her Aaliyah, because one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted a universal name. And now I'm Indian, and for me, it's Alia.
Ah.
Um,
Oh.
and but it's a name that I did research on, and you find it across cultures. So you find it in the Indian culture, the Iranian culture, the Jewish culture, the Black culture.
That's
Um, so I wanted a name that was more universal. And one of the things that I do in the book is I don't identify where she's from,
mm,
because I think it was very important for her to represent everyone, every child. She can
mm,
be any child, right?
mm,
And so some of the depictions and the the art and all of that, the illustrations were done very deliberately to make sure that it was cross cultural and multicultural.
mm,
Um, and then one of the things I know, without spoiler alert, I suppose, but it is a children's book, so the ending was not negative,
yeah.
and part of that was because I think that it's already hard enough to have these conversations. It's
Mhm.
already hard enough for parents, teachers, lawyers, to have these conversations. And the last thing I wanted to do was create yet another layer of hopelessness.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that was also deliberate.
Well, and we talked a little bit offline about how important hope is. Hope is hope can carry you through in moments where it feels seemingly impossible. And so, bravo to you for
Thank
creating
you.
this resource. And I feel like now would be a great time to share a quick video regarding the clinic and then also Aliyah, the break.
Deportation is a nasty word. It can leave you feeling helpless. But it doesn't have to be that way. There is hope. And you don't have to fight deportation on your own. Through education, you can be empowered. Through consultation, you can know your rights. With the correct knowledge, you can keep your family together. The clinic is here to help. Because the American dream is for everyone.
So tell me your thoughts. So when you watch that video, what does it make you think of? Those videos, rather.
Yeah, I think about how, especially the clinic video, we were so grateful. It was a student at KU that had done that for us. And he and I worked and collaborated on how to get just the right feel that it did, in fact, represent what the work was for the clinic. And one of the actors, if you will, was an actual client of the clinic.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and was very excited to do do the video for us. And so, yeah, every time I see that, I always think, boy, I bet that that person is off doing amazing stuff and living the best life. And I hope that for that person.
I love that. And so we will, of course, put up your websites for anyone looking to uh, learn more about your clinic to help support it, or if they know someone who needs support. But then also regarding the book, so it is your name is the link for it, and I believe I read that a part of the proceeds are it's going to some organizations. Can you talk about what organizations the proceeds are going to?
Yes. So there's three nonprofits that the book will contribute to. The first is the clinic. It will a part of it will go back to the clinic for the work to continue. But the other two organizations, one of them is the National Immigration Litigation Alliance, NILA. It is a nonprofit that was founded by a friend of mine, Trina Realmuto, who is an extraordinary legal mind, and she is dedicated to doing national impact litigation. So
Mhm.
things that not only just impact her client, but more importantly, can be the path towards national change. And then the third organization is the National Immigration Project, which is part of the National Immigration Lawyers Guild. And again, they have been known for their cutting edge position on things and taking cases that just kind of push the law forward and hold power accountable. And so it just seemed like the best fit to be able to continue the work in all of those ways.
Okay, awesome.
One
All
thing,
three.
one,
Yes.
one thing I do want to also bring people aware of is this is the 10th year. And so for the clinic, we've been doing fundraising and a raffle. So if somebody wants the book or wants a bag, they can go on the clinic Facebook page and make a donation to try and then we will raffle it away. But we are trying to reach $10,000 in. So it was $10,000 for the year. And we are a little less than halfway there.
Okay.
And with only 2 months to go, now would be the time for people, if they really want to support the work, to help us get to that goal this year.
Yes, and Giving Tuesday is coming up as well. And so, yes, those are great opportunities. And you answered the next question, which is how can people get involved? And so they can go on your Facebook page, they can go on your website. I'm sure there's a link on your website to get to your Facebook page or to donate just outright on your website, correct?
Yeah, they can do it all of those ways. And if they still can't, find where we're supposed to go, you can email me and I will put you in touch with all of the right places.
Okay, that's awesome. Are you working? Not that you don't have anything else to do. Is there anything else that you're working on? I saw something in the book, and it said Aaliyah's friends, the people in Aaliyah's neighborhood were from all across the world. Are you doing something with her friends, or what's next for her? It just feels like there should be more about her experience.
I think there will likely be another book. It's probably not going to be until next year or even the end of next year. Um,
Mhm.
but on the website, if you go to my website, which is rekasharmacrawford.com, which is Alia's book site, what you'll see is that what I've tried to do is also showcase other immigration attorneys who've written books or have done children's books to try and support their work as well. And so I think that's coming up. Uh, for me, I think it is about making sure that her story becomes one that helps lift other people's stories as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. She's going to be a catalyst for the many stories that exist in this experience, empowering children coping with immigration enforcement. I think oftentimes we don't focus on the children, and we need to talk about how this impacts their lives. So again, bravo for creating
Thank
this
you.
in
Thank
a
you.
space where it just didn't exist, as you said previously. So that is awesome. That is awesome. Are there any shout outs? So we know that you have an amazing husband. Is your partner in this journey, but please don't let me steal that one. Are there any shout outs that you want to give to folks that help supported you throughout this journey?
Oh my gosh, so many. There's been so many people. From Ginevra Alberti, who is the clinic attorney. She's been with us for the whole journey. And she is now part of the DNA of the clinic. Jennifer Lopez de Gonzalez, who is the clinic paralegal. Like it literally is. It's these two women. And yes, we support them, but they are just powerhouses onto them themselves, right? And they put their life and love and everything else into the clinic, and I don't think it could exist without them.
Mm.
But our board members who have come in and really supported us from the very beginning. Some of them have been with us from when we went to them and said, Michael and I went to them and said, "Hey, we want to do this," and they went, "You want to do what? Why?" And they've been our sounding board. They've been there to pick us up off the floor and say, no, you can keep going. So I
Yeah.
think there's been that. There's been for people like you who've said, look, we're going to help amplify the work and the voice of the clinic. So I think there's been so many people over the years. But and then most important, I go back to the
Mm.
clients that the clinic has helped, that I know there have been people who have come in and they were able to take their life and then go do good in the world.
Yes.
It's kind of our parting words to them when they leave the clinic, which is now go do something great.
Mm.
And we want to hear about all the great things that you've done. So I think there's been so many that have done it. I also believe, obviously, that there's a power greater than any of us that keeps us motivated and keeps us in the fight when we need the most, on those days when we just don't want to fight anymore. So yeah, I think there's been many.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, I am a faith believer, so I am with you on that. There has to be something more, right, than all of us. So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And so we are to the space where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about creative. And so creative stands for committed, ready, excited, audacious, tenacious, inspires, visionary, and energy. If you had to pick a word that really encompasses what you are feeling on today, what is the one word that you would select and why?
Well, if I actually followed the rules, you'd be like, I'm having the conversation with someone else. So, so I know you gave me one word, but true to my nature, I would say it would be audacious and tenacious. And I
Okay.
say that because I think both of them are required to continue to do the work. You have to have the bold dream, but you also have to have just the persistence to keep fighting on. So,
Yeah.
so I didn't really know how to decide between the two, and I thought, she'll be okay if I just pick them both.
I'll be fine. No love lost. I love it. I love
maybe
it. I love
it's maybe I'll create a new word like tenacity. How about
it.
that?
I love it. Tenacity. You are funny. So with that, I'm a firm believer that like it's all of the things, right? And I know that art inspires many different kind of creative thoughts and spaces and ideas. What music? What's a song or two songs that you would say is what's your theme song?
Well, it changes. Sometimes it's a Hindi song, sometimes it's an English song, and sometimes it's a Spanish song, sometimes it's a fusion song. But right now, in the last few days, a few years actually, with the pandemic and all going on, if I had to pick one song, it would be Underdog by Alicia Keys. There
Really?
are some there if you look at the lyrics of that song, I thought, man, she must have been thinking of our work when she wrote it. Um, because I think there's a line in there that says the things that change us if we notice when we look up sometimes, right? And I think that sometimes when you're trying to make a change, when you're trying to do something that not a lot of people have done, it sometimes just requires us to look up sometimes and go, what's missing? Where's the gap?
Yes.
And we tend to sometimes just get so holed in, right? And just kind of look down like we have blinders on. But when you take off the blinders and look up, you really do see where the gaps in everything are.
Yes.
And then we've always counted ourselves as an underdog. People didn't think we were going to make it. Nobody thought the clinic would be around for 10 years. When I published the book, I published it as a self-publishing effort, because when I met with publishers, they wanted me to change the name so it was more universal, so it was not so ethnic, so to
Mm.
speak. And so I just feel like I kind of pave my own path as I go. And so I really did relate to the lyrics of that song, and it's just a happy song also. So if you listen to it, you just kind of end up dancing, even though you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was sitting here dancing, but you are.
Endorphins and all those things we need to keep moving forward.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
That's beautiful. Well, yay. It was such a pleasure talking with you. Is there anything as we wrap up that you just want to share with folks or that you want for folks to know about the work that's happening?
No, I think that I appreciate your time. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me. And for those out there that are struggling, keep going. And for those who are not struggling, reach behind you and help someone else. And together we can cross the line.
Wonderful ending words. And again, this was another creative conversation. We'll definitely encourage folks to visit these websites and to support the work that is happening here within Kansas City and to not be afraid to embark upon your own creative journey. All right, take care.
Thank you, Shanelle.